Good afternoon. How are you? This is going to be a bit different than many of my videos, although it kind of relates to some of the same stuff. As I speak, people in Missouri are wearing disguises to go get vaccinated against COVID because they fear for their own safety. In Tennessee, a pastor of a fairly large church has barred congregants who might wear masks. They will be escorted from the building. In Montana, a Red Pill Festival was held this week. I read as many of the speech transcripts as I could find, and I could not identify a single truth that the various speakers told the audience. Everything they said that I could see was lies. In England, a man was just sentenced to 10 years after trying to murder his pregnant partner while she was in the bath with a hammer. On the 18th of January this year, he attacked her. Her 8-year-old son attempted to call the police, and he ripped the phone out of the boy's hand and threw it out of the building. She managed to escape in the meanwhile and run naked into the street screaming for help. He wound up arrested and now imprisoned. Why did he do this? Well, he was trying to wait for the 20th when he thought Trump would be re-inaugurated in the United States, but he was afraid it wasn't going to happen, and he was terrified because only Trump, he thought, could save him and his family from the horrible, apparently international deep state. In California, a woman drowned her 3 young children because she believed she could not protect them from the pedophile ring that Q had convinced her was operating in her area. And in New Hampshire, a woman locked her children in the house and burned the house down for the same reason. Why is this happening? I'll tell you why. Yes, the pandemic has not helped. But the reality is that the things I've been talking about in these broadcasts, people know this. People aren't wandering around thinking, oh, well, it's all going to be all right. There'll be new... People know what is happening. And people do not necessarily have the complexity in the way they address the world to be able to see a way out. There aren't a ring of pedophiles in the California neighborhood where the woman lived. Trump didn't even know the man in England and his family existed and wasn't going to save them if he could. The reality is that people know. They know that there are serious things afoot. They know. And everyone knows. If you look in your heart, you know. This political economy is going to end soon. It will be replaced with something. Of course there are pedophiles, and let's be honest, one of the biggest ones, who was arrested in Pennsylvania, had been the chair of Trump's Pennsylvania, I think, fundraising, maybe campaign. Others, Greenberg in Florida, a Republican tax collector, friend of Matt Gaetz. I'm sure, and when I talk about pedophilia, I'm talking about people who in some way, prepubescent. Once you're in puberty, ages of consent are all over the place. And frankly, I was having sex at 13, and I certainly knew what I was doing and what I wanted to do. I don't count that as much, if at all. But prepubescent children who aren't in puberty, and sure there are. And I'm sure some are Democrats, although they're probably not elected Democrats. But that's not really the issue. The issue is a combination of two things. Economics, and whether people, they can say, oh, it's natural, it's this, it's that, but deep down in their heart, people look at what's happening with the climate and they know where it's from. They know it's human action. The people who deny it publicly know it. The people in their homes, wherever, know it. There isn't any question. They don't really have questions. They look for things, as Scripture says, that tickle their ears. And they know. Even the people who are following, the people who have become QAnon cultists and other cultists, and a lot of the beliefs are the same between them, as the Montana Red Pill Festival is showing, where Republican politicians are speaking and spreading the most outrageous things. They know in their heart what they're doing. They're distracting. They're distracting. There was a review done of a study on the environment that had come out in the 70s that said we had to stop over-industrializing, we had to move towards sustainability, and it gave a series of benchmarks of where we would end up at different times if we did not, and guess where we are? Right where they said we'd be. Now, part of that is our actions, and part of that, a lot of that, is our inactions, and I give them credit for understanding that those inactions would exist. We have the technology to bypass all of these things. We're using almost none of it. Why? A tiny cadre of ultra-rich people who are better served by killing off most of us, if they have to, than they are by taking action. And yes, there are some ultra-rich people who are taking action. But there are some who are not taking action. And people know. People know. People know that the heat domes didn't exist 80 years ago. People know that these enormous droughts are being driven by rising temperatures. You can't deny rising temperatures. You can play games about what's causing them. But you know they exist because we have temperature readings over more than 100 years, and the temperature's up. On average, over 1 degree Celsius, which is whatever, close to 2 degrees Fahrenheit. On average. That has an effect. And we know it has an effect. People know. They don't need to know that the methane, cold methane storage in the Arctic is giving way, which will add other greenhouse gas. They don't need to know. They know because of what they see. And they know that decent paying jobs are going away everywhere in the world because technology is replacing them. And they know that they can't do anything about it. Except, of course, take action politically to push for solutions. I grew up in the Republican Party. I've said that before. The religious cult that largely... For God's sake, Richard Nixon supported guaranteed full employment and guaranteed universal health care. Supported it publicly in speeches, and the Republicans of that day applauded him. Good God, now they've been the rank and file. See, the Republicans, like the ones who elected Nixon, like the ones who elected Buckley, who was a conservative, like the ones who supported Rockefeller, they're gone. They either have died of old age, or like me, they've left and become, well, in my case now, Democrat. My positions have not changed one whit on anything substantive since I was a registered member of the New York State Conservative Party. The New York State Conservative Party has changed enormously. The Republican Party has changed enormously. And I will always remember that I was at the event where that started. Jesus 77 in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, when Pat Robertson said the religious right had to take over one party or the other, or Christianity was going to fail, and he recommended the Republican Party because it was smaller and organized labor was mostly Democratic, and they didn't want to fight them. So instead, they pushed for the Republicans. And now the Republican Party is not Christian conservative. No Christian conservative who genuinely knows the precepts of evangelical behavior and belief could possibly support what the Republican Party has become. And I say that as someone who was in the evangelical movement and who was ordained in the evangelical movement, even though I am long gone from it, for the same reason. It was taken over as a cult, and that is not what it was originally. It's all about politics. And it's all about politics that preserve you, not politics that tickle your ears and make you think, oh, there isn't a problem, or, oh, it's those terrible, somebody put out a book that actually said all Democrats murdered and ate children. That would be a lot of children, given how many Democrats are in the country. These people are dangerous, and they need to be stopped at the ballot box by everyone, including all the people who historically were in the same party. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if that ran on. Be well.